Hi guys, my name is Bomikazi Lupindo. I am a clinical psychologist, the founder of Mind Matters NPO, and I am currently doing my doctorate at the University of Oxford. So I have been asked to do this career pathways video in support of the mentorship program with Sailing with Martha. And it's a mentorship program that's specifically targeting individuals who are interested in psychology or want to pursue careers in psychology. So if you aren't watching this video through them, please do check them out. It's a great resource. So today I'll be speaking a little bit more about some of the things that I do within my career, the pathway that it took for me to get to where I am, and I guess just some of the things that I have learned along the way in my journey of being a psychologist. So I have a couple of questions with me here. So I'll go through each one of them. And hopefully by the end of this video, not only will you know a little bit more about me, but you'll also get a bit of understanding in terms of what are the possible pathways within the field of psychology. First question, can you tell us about what you do now and what your actual work looks like on a day-to-day basis? So for me, it's a little bit different in terms of what hat I'm wearing. So I'm generally what people would call a clinical scientist and a social entrepreneur. And I say that because, like I mentioned initially, that I'm a clinical psychologist, which is the clinical bit. I also do research through my PhD, which is the scientific bit. And I also founded a nonprofit organization, and I do a lot of work within the social impact and entrepreneurship space. In terms of just how I think about structuring my week, it's holding in mind the different hats that I actually wear and create space for that. So from a clinical perspective, right now I am working in private practice. So I generally just only focus on doing individual or couples therapy, sometimes family related therapy or play therapy with younger children. And in terms of the research aspect of things, so my research is focused on developing an intervention for young people who are exposed to community and school violence. And that is made up of different studies, which means it involves also different methodological approaches, including both surveys, interviews, systematic searches of literature, and an actual intervention that we're delivering through schools. So my day-to-day is generally either meeting with stakeholders, spending a lot of time just in the office, reading articles or writing up articles, and also doing the research bit, which is participant engagement, either through setting up surveys and piloting them, or actually doing analysis of the data that we collected. And then in terms of the social impact hat, what that looks like is generally team meetings with either the various members of the organization, be it's the board members or different teams that we have within the organization itself, engaging with people who have an interest within the organization, looking for potential partners, looking for funding and submitting funding applications. And I'm also the lead of the lay counseling program. So anything that has to do with the recruitment of lay counselors or the supervisors who are mental health professionals who supervise the program, delivering other continued professional development programs or designing those programs. So my week is generally split across those things. And on some days, it's going to be a clinical day, or it's going to be a research day, or it's going to be a nonprofit day. So generally, that's how my week is spread out. But sometimes the day itself can be a combination of these different things. Next question, looking back, was this the path you always planned, or did things shift along the way? I think this is actually quite a difficult question in the sense that for me, I know that a lot of people will have these profound kind of explanations of, I've always known I wanted to be a psychologist, but honestly, I can honestly say that wasn't the case for me. When I was 18, I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do. I was in high school. Other people in my class seemed to have a clear idea of what careers they wanted to pursue. And essentially, I ended up in psychology through literally conversations that I was having with people, but also the fact that when I was applying for university, I was applying for all the things that I thought were indicators of success. And this was based on conversations that I was having with people. And psychology just happened to be one of those things I applied to. I remember I applied for investment banking, I applied for accounting, I applied for MBCHB, I applied for psychology. So I applied for varied things and ended up picking the one that I felt like I gravitated a little bit more towards. And it's only through being exposed to what psychology is in terms of just the experience I was having in my undergrad, in terms of what I was learning in class, but also the opportunities that were coming up to volunteer in different spaces, that I actually felt like this aligned with me and who I was and the thing that I was interested in. But this again was me making a decision at a time and place that I had no information about what I was going into. So I think as a young person, just knowing and understanding that when you are making that decision, it might help to actually expose yourself to what it is that you think you want to do or what it is that other people tell you that you need to do. And if along the way you realize that actually this doesn't align with me, also knowing that it's okay to change your mind about things. I also remember when I was doing my master's, a lot of people that ended up in the field of psychology were actually people who were in other professions before psychology. It's either they were medical students or they were actual actuarial scientists or some other career that might not even be related to the field of psychology. So I think it is quite a big decision to have to make at the time. And sometimes it can feel a bit disheartening when you're someone that doesn't have a clear understanding of what it is that you want to do when you are leaving high school. So next question, what career opportunities are available within the field of psychology? Honestly, I think this is a big question because one thing I love about psychology, and I guess specifically clinical psychology, is just how much you can be able to do. I remember when I was doing my master's, I felt so extremely overwhelmed because you literally do every single possible thing that a psychologist can do, and it's all crammed up within a small space of time. But within that space, it's them just trying to expose you of the different spaces that are possible for you to work in. So I guess based on the experience that I've had, there's so many different career pathways that you could take it. I could actually take the research route, the clinical scientist route, which is what I'm doing, the social impact route, which is the nonprofit work that I'm doing, evaluating interventions, development of interventions, doing more forensic or psycholegal work, working with corporate in terms of both individual therapy, but also some of the programs that they have, either coming from a psychological perspective in like a marketing team and so forth. There's just so much stuff that you could actually do that has to do with like human behavior, understanding human behavior, and intervening in different ways in relation to human behavior. So that's just a little bit in terms of what I was exposed to and what experience that I have. But there's so much more that you could actually do within the field itself. Next question, it says, what's a challenge you faced early in your journey and how did you work through it? I think the biggest challenge for me were two things. The first is I didn't have a clear understanding of what it took to become a psychologist. So I didn't know that I was actually supposed to then do my master's. And I guess if you're studying in a different country, the fact that you had to do your PhD in order for you to actually practice. And I feel like had I gotten that understanding before, then I probably would have chosen differently, largely because I just felt like I didn't have the freedom to be able to stay in school for that long, which then brings me to the second challenge, which was actually having funding for the program that I was studying. So when I was going into my undergrad, there weren't necessarily opportunities that were specifically for psychology. And I think it links to the second bit that a lot of the bursaries that were there were looking for people who at the end of their undergrad can actually go into the market and were people that were employable, whereas with psychology that wasn't the case. So I actually really struggled to find any funding, and I ended up having to study really hard so I can get merit scholarships, and that's how I got through my undergrad and my honors. And it's only when I got into masters that I felt like funding opportunities were there. And again, I feel like it's often linked to the fact that you then become someone that can be absorbed into the job market after that stage. So I think those two things, not necessarily knowing what the journey would look like, and also most importantly, just the lack of opportunities for funding within the field itself. So next question is, what advice would you give to students torn between two pathways or unsure where to start? I think it's quite similar to what I was saying a bit earlier, to say, if you're not sure where to start, just think of what are the things that you do have an interest in. Like what is something that you're curious about? And is this something that could actually be pursued as a career? And doing a little bit more research about that. And once you've discovered that, actually giving yourself permission to be exposed to it, either through job shadowing or experimenting with it and seeing how it goes. I feel like when I think of the time when I was applying and how we thought about careers, it was often specific professions that were tied to success. Whereas for some people, actually, like if you're good at content creation, if you're someone that actually enjoys kind of public speaking and those kind of things, maybe that's the kind of career pathway that you need to think about. If you're someone that's a lot more methodological and more logical in terms of how you think about things, thinking about careers that actually complement the qualities that make you who you are and the things that you already know are your strengths and are your interests, but also most importantly, the things that you actually are curious about. And I think in terms of just being torn between certain pathways or even just not knowing what career to follow, again, just giving yourself permission to explore and knowing that you're young, you still have your whole life ahead of you, that it's okay for you to actually make mistakes or choose things that don't align with you, because this is the time where you have the freedom to do that. And this is the time where you can actually do that exploration before you settle into something that you'll then spend probably the next 60 years or 40 years of your life working on or doing. So give yourself permission to be curious about yourself, about what's out there, and also giving yourself permission to actually pursue those things and changing your mind if you do feel like it doesn't align with you. Okay, and then the final question is, what's one message you'd leave with students who are listening and unsure about their future? The message that I'd want to leave with them is, you don't have to have it all figured out. You're young. Like, this is the time where you're learning about yourself, you're learning about other people, you're learning about the world around you, you're learning about the things that are meaningful for you. So it's okay for you to not have it figured out. If it means you would like to take a bit of time to actually explore what it is that you want to do, that could look like taking a gap year, that could look like trying out an internship program or some kind of program that allows you to actually explore different things, then go for it. It's okay for you to not know. No one expects you to know. Yes, it might look like people around you have it figured out, and chances are they probably share in the same anxiety that you are sharing in. So give yourself permission to have conversations with people and find out about their own experiences. And I think oftentimes that can actually make us feel less alone in the space of not knowing and not being certain about things. And if people are certain about things, also checking in with them in terms of, how did you get that clarity for yourself? Who were the people that you were speaking to that helped provide guidance? What is there that is available for you? Please do give yourself permission to just be okay with the lack of understanding or lack of certainty of what the future holds, and knowing that whatever decision you make it based on the information you have today. If that information changes tomorrow, it's also okay for that decision to change. You don't have to tie yourself to something just because you made that decision based on information you had at a time that's now outdated. So extend a bit of grace to yourself and don't forget to be curious and allow yourself to learn along the way.